They told me I was too old for family vacations, but not too old for my bank card to come along. My name is Judith Winters. I'm 71 years old. I live in the house I shared with my husband for 43 years, until he passed and the silence moved in. These days, I live with my son, Mark, his wife Tara, and their 2 kids, or at least we share an address, because lately I've realized I'm not really part of their lives. I'm part of their utility bills. I stood at the stove, slowly stirring a pot of pasta sauce, though I wasn't hungry. The clock blinked 6:42 p.m. on the microwave, and the house was quiet. Too quiet for a place that also housed a young couple and 2 grandkids. I could hear faint music playing from Mark and Tara's part of the house, the back unit we'd converted last year. From the laughter and bass, it was obvious they had company. Again, I wasn't invited. I paused, listening. No one had come to say hello. No little knock from Lily or Max. No, "Mum, do you want to join us for dinner?" like they used to say when they first moved in. I turned down the burner and let the sauce simmer. The smell reminded me of Sunday dinners with my husband, Daniel. He used to say I made the best sauce this side of Sicily. It had been 3 years since he passed, but his voice still lived in the kitchen tiles and the drawer that squeaked when I pulled out the silverware. Now, I mostly cooked alone, ate alone, laughed alone unless I was babysitting the kids or paying for something they needed. They didn't say it out loud, but I could feel it. I'd become a burden, a soft inconvenience they managed between paychecks and school pickups. I was their fallback, their unpaid helper, their live-in sitter, and when I wasn't being useful, I was invisible. Earlier that day, I'd tried to help Tara with laundry. She was rushing around, holding her phone with one hand and a pile of folded clothes in the other. "Oh, no, Judith," she chirped, forcing a polite smile. "You don't need to do that. Go rest. Maybe watch one of your little mystery shows." "Your little mystery shows." She patted my arm like I was a cardigan-wearing toddler and walked off. That night, after scraping my untouched dinner into a container, I sat down to pay the gas bill. I clicked into my online banking account, already knowing what I'd see. A few Amazon charges from last week, the pharmacy, the grocery store. Maybe that odd double charge from the hardware store Tara had said it was a system glitch. But there was something new, something bold. Alitalia, $2,712.94. I blinked. Was this fraud? I clicked to see the details. 2 adult round-trip tickets from JFK to Milan, first week of June, booked 2 days ago. My hand went cold against the mouse. That couldn't be right. I hadn't flown since 2011. I hated planes. There were more charges. Airbnbs in Paris, bookings from Rail Europe, charges from a restaurant in Florence. I checked the date again. They were supposed to be flying out today? I stood up, walked to the back door, and opened it slightly. Laughter drifted in. Mark's voice, Tara's giggle, the kids shouting something about luggage. Then I heard her say it, laughing loudly enough for the world to hear. "Oh my God, babe, Europe's gonna be epic. And hey, shout out to our mystery sponsor." A pause. More laughter. "Thanks, Mum." I didn't walk back inside. I closed the door gently, locked it, and returned to my room. Inside, I sat back at the computer. I checked my past charges, slowly, one by one. There was an Uber Eats order from 2 months ago for sushi, $87. I hate sushi. There was a spa booking I didn't recognize. Delivered wine packages. A streaming subscription I never signed up for. All of them billed to my name. The truth didn't come all at once. It crept in like a draft under the door. They had been using me, not just today, not just for this trip, but for months, quietly, shamelessly. I reached for my tea. My hands were shaking, not from rage, from clarity. The following morning, the house was unusually still. Their car was gone, the driveway empty, not a single crumb left in the kitchen. They were gone. I stood by the sink, watching the sun crawl across the garden Daniel and I had planted years ago. Mark used to chase butterflies there. Now he couldn't be bothered to chase a phone call from his mother. On the counter sat a half-open credit card statement I had printed the night before. I picked it up again, reading each line with a new, burning clarity. It wasn't a one-time mistake. It was a trail months long. I dialed the credit card company. The voice on the other end was a chipper woman named Shauna. I gave her my details, confirmed the most recent transactions, and asked to file a formal report for unauthorized international charges. There was a pause on her end after I listed everything. "Mrs. Winters," she said gently, "I'm reviewing the account history and it looks like this isn't the first time." My stomach turned. "There are charges going back to early February that may also fall outside your normal pattern. Would you like me to list them?" I hesitated, then nodded, even though she couldn't see me. "Yes." She began reading. Spa door, $230. Grubdash, Eats, $126. Airbnb reservation attempt declined due to card limit. Skinlux subscription. Renewal, $49.99 monthly since March. I closed my eyes. They were using my card like it was an extension of their life, a silent account they'd never have to repay, like I was some old, dumb background wallet. "Would you like to dispute these charges as well?" Shauna asked carefully. I opened my eyes. "Yes," I said. "I want to dispute all of them." She took my statement, filed a case number, and marked the card as compromised. The card would be frozen immediately, and a fraud alert would be sent to the airline on file. "Do you know who may have used your account?" Shauna asked. I paused. "My son and his wife," I said. There was silence, professional but heavy. "I'm sorry to hear that," she replied. After the call, I opened my laptop again and typed Alitalia check-in support. I copied the contact email for fraud and identity misuse. Then, I attached a PDF of the charges and wrote, "Hello, I am the legal owner of the credit card used to purchase the tickets for passengers Mark Winters and Tara Winters. These charges were made without my knowledge or consent. I have already filed a report with my financial institution and have initiated a fraud claim. Please flag this booking for identity theft and notify appropriate authorities at your discretion." I hovered over the send button for a second longer, then clicked. I sat back in the chair. My heart wasn't racing. It wasn't grief. It wasn't even anger. It was something colder. They'd erased me from every memory, every invitation, every table setting, yet they couldn't travel the world without my bank card. They didn't want me in their Instagram photos, but they wanted my money in their checkout screens. They wanted me quiet, available, and blind. But not this time. I printed everything: the charges, the emails, the screenshots. I placed them in a manila folder and labeled it simply Europe. Then I walked to the hall closet and pulled out a small fireproof box Daniel had once insisted we buy. It used to hold insurance papers and house documents. Now it held my resolve. By evening, my phone buzzed. Blocked call, then again, then once more. I didn't answer. I knew what was happening. They were at the airport. They were trying to board. They were realizing too late that the card didn't work. I could picture it. Tara's frantic voice, Mark's clenched jaw, the airline staff politely asking them to step to the side for a moment, a badge from airport security appearing just over someone's shoulder. I didn't need to see it. I could feel it. This wasn't revenge. This was proof that I wasn't powerless, that I still mattered at least enough to ruin their plans when they ignored my presence for everything else. That night, I made tea. Chamomile, Daniel's favorite. I sat in the living room, turned on a soft lamp, and pulled a blanket over my lap. Outside, the wind stirred the hydrangeas. Somewhere over the Atlantic, there should have been airplane lights cutting across the sky. But not tonight. The first call came at 1:37 p.m. I didn't recognize the number. The screen simply read, Blocked. I let it go to voicemail. The second came at 1:41, then again at 1:46. By the fourth call, I silenced my phone completely and placed it face down on the kitchen counter. I stirred a pot of lentil soup and added salt. 1 bay leaf, just like Daniel always did. The smell reminded me of winter Sundays and simpler times when love didn't come with conditions and family didn't mean contracts. I didn't need the phone to know what was happening. They were at JFK, trying to board, and the card hadn't gone through. It wasn't until later that evening that the confirmation came, not from Mark or Tara, but from Tara's sister, Melanie. She left a voicemail, her voice shrill and full of theatrical outrage. "Judith, what is wrong with you? You froze your own son's card. You know they were counting on this trip. They were humiliated at the airport, stopped by customs like criminals." Tara was in tears. "Do you know what you've done?" I listened once, then again, then deleted the message. The phrase, "like criminals," echoed in my mind. She said it like it was an insult, but it wasn't inaccurate. They'd committed fraud against their own family, and they thought I'd just swallow it. I poured myself tea and sat by the window. The hydrangeas outside were blooming early, but beautiful. A reminder that even when things arrive out of season, they can still mean something. They can still stand for something. I looked down at the Europe folder sitting on the table. My proof. My protection. I needed more than screenshots. I needed this documented properly, legally. The next morning, I walked into Margaret Sinclair's office, a brick and ivy building nestled between a dentist and a tailor. Quiet, but dignified. Margaret had been my friend for nearly 30 years. She was also a retired family attorney and the executor of Daniel's estate. She knew me before Tara's polished fake smiles, before Mark learned to weaponize guilt, before I started second-guessing my own worth. She greeted me with warm eyes and a firm handshake. "I had a feeling I'd be seeing you again one day," she said softly, motioning me into her office. I laid the folder down on her desk. "Take your time," I said. "I'll wait." It took her 15 minutes to read through everything. When she looked up, her expression wasn't surprise. It was sad certainty. "They've been slowly siphoning from you," she said, adjusting her reading glasses. "You've given them your home, your time, your presence, and they've responded with theft." I nodded. "And indifference." "That too," she murmured. She tapped the folder. "Would you like to pursue legal action? Financial abuse of a vulnerable adult is a real charge, Judith." I looked at her, really looked. For the first time in years, I saw a reflection of strength, not fragility, in someone else's eyes. "Not yet," I said. "But I want every option documented. I want everything locked down." We spent the next 2 hours going through power of attorney revocation, credit monitoring flags, statement, notarization, a formal letter drafted to confirm the fraudulent use of funds for a luxury trip. I signed everything in blue ink. Margaret made copies. A sense of weight shifting settled in my bones. For once, I wasn't the one being managed. I was managing. That evening, as I was placing the documents in my fireproof box, my neighbor Alma knocked on the door. She brought over a slice of lemon cake wrapped in wax paper and sat with me on the porch. "You okay, sweetie?" she asked, her voice gravelly but warm. I hesitated. Then I told her. Not everything, but enough. She didn't flinch. "You know," she said, sipping her tea, "when I was your age, I let my niece borrow my car. Said she just needed it to run errands. You know what she did?" "What?" "She drove it to Vegas and pawned my husband's cufflinks at a blackjack table." I laughed, startled. "You're kidding." "I wish," Alma said. "And you know what taught me something that day? Not what she did, but that I let it happen. Because I thought love meant never saying no, I looked at her, really looked. Love doesn't mean letting yourself be emptied," she continued. Love means letting people face their own storms when they've ignored every umbrella you ever held out to them. That night, I slept soundly for the first time in months. No dreams, no nightmares, just stillness. There's a unique kind of grief that comes when someone you love forgets your worth, not in a moment, not in a mistake, but in a pattern. I used to think it was just aging, that maybe I was too sensitive, that maybe they were just busy or stressed. But that's the trick with slow betrayal. It never slaps. It seeps. I remembered one Thanksgiving 2 years ago, maybe 3. I'd cooked everything. Turkey, stuffing, 2 pies. Tara had told me not to stress myself and offered to handle the guest list. The guests arrived. Friends of theirs, Tara's co-workers, a few of Mark's clients. I was introduced once as our awesome built-in babysitter. That was it. I spent the night refilling drinks and taking coats. No one asked me to sit at the table. I ate my plate cold in the kitchen, standing next to the sink. When I told Mark later how I felt, he chuckled and said, "You're reading too much into it, Mum. We thought you liked the kitchen." That was the first time I felt the sting. The second time, I swallowed it. The third, I started believing it. Now I see it all differently. They didn't just use my card. They used my silence. They weaponized my patience. They turned my love into a resource, not a relationship. In the days after the airport chaos, I made changes. I called the locksmith and had the back door locks changed. I told the kids it was just a safety update, though the truth was, I no longer felt safe from the people inside my own home. I went to the power company and asked them to remove my name from the utility account that I had been paying. I visited the bank and removed Mark as an emergency contact. One by one, I began removing the handholds they'd built into my life, the quiet anchors that kept me tethered to their convenience. A week later, Tara texted, "Can you grab the kids from school tomorrow? We're slammed. Love you." I stared at the screen for a full minute before typing, "No, I'm unavailable." No explanation. No apology. A second text came 5 minutes later. "Judith, are you okay?" I didn't answer. I was better than okay. I was unavailable, and for once, that meant something. That evening, I opened a photo album I hadn't touched in years. Daniel and I at the beach, in the garden, holding baby Mark like he was the whole world. I traced my fingers over the image of Daniel holding a wrench, smiling from ear to ear in the garage. He used to say, "Love is maintenance, not fireworks." I used to think that meant I should forgive everything. Now I think it means knowing when something needs to be fixed or replaced. On a quiet Saturday morning, I invited Margaret over. We sat at the dining table drinking coffee, surrounded by neat stacks of labeled folders. "Everything is set," she told me. "Bank, utilities, legal status. We've removed their access to anything tied to your name." I nodded. "Except the house." Her brow lifted. "Are you ready to change that too?" "I'm past ready," I said. Years ago, when Mark and Tara were going through a rough patch, I added both their names to the deed for tax reasons, a temporary solution they never undid. At the time, it made sense. Family helps family. We all live together. We all share. But sharing without respect is just surrender. We filed the paperwork that afternoon. That night, I heard the back door open, keys jangling, heavy footsteps. I stepped into the hallway just as Mark entered, carrying a bag of groceries. He stopped when he saw me. "Hey, Mum," he said cautiously. "Tara said you were acting off lately. Did she also tell you I froze the credit card she used without asking?" He shifted uncomfortably. "We were going to talk to you about that." I cut him off. "You already talked, with my bank account, with my utilities, with my patience." He stood there, blinking. "I know you've been taking from me, Mark. Not just money, but space, time, respect. That's not fair." "No," I said. "It's overdue." I held up a single envelope. "Here's a copy of the updated deed. You've been removed." Margaret filed it this morning. He looked stunned. You can't just... I can. I have. And if you try anything further, I'll escalate this to elder financial abuse. Legally, emotionally, morally, we're done until you understand what family actually means. He didn't yell. He didn't cry. He just nodded, slowly, like someone finally realizing the tide had turned and it was never coming back for them. They returned on a Thursday. I heard the gravel crunch in the driveway just before noon. Then came the slam of the car door, the rolling of heavy luggage, the grumble of voices. Mark walked in first, looking like someone who'd spent a week failing to outrun embarrassment. Tara followed, designer sunglasses perched high to cover puffy eyes. They didn't speak as they dragged their suitcases through the house like defeated royalty. They didn't knock. They just walked into my side of the home like they always had, like they assumed the doors would stay open no matter how many locks they violated. I was in the living room reading. I didn't look up. Mark cleared his throat. "Hey, Mum, you got a minute?" I turned the page of my book. Tara jumped in. "We just wanted to clear the air. This trip, it got out of hand. There were misunderstandings. We're home now, so maybe we can all just breathe and..." "Sit," I said. They did, across from me on the couch, like children awaiting a principal's verdict. Mark leaned forward, elbows on knees. "Look, I know you're upset, and that's fair, but things got confusing. You stole from me," I said, eyes still on my book. His mouth opened, then shut. Tara tried to smile. "Judith, you've always helped us. We just assumed..." "There's a difference between helping," I interrupted, "and being harvested." Tara's mouth flattened. "We were going to pay you back." "No, you weren't." She blinked. "I checked your transaction history," I continued. "You've been using my card for 6 months. Spa trips, takeout, subscriptions. Even tried booking a resort once it declined. You forgot I still get alerts." Mark leaned back, rubbing his face. "We were under stress. The kids, the bills. We thought you'd understand. You didn't invite me to Lily's birthday party, but you invited my bank account to Paris." His face dropped. Tara tried a softer tactic. "Judith, we love you. Things just got scrambled, emotionally. This isn't who we are." "You're right," I said. "It's who you've chosen to become." I reached behind the armchair and pulled out the folder, the same manila folder labeled Europe, though now it was thicker. Inside were color-coded tabs, charges, screenshots, bank statements, email confirmations, a copy of the fraud report, a notarized letter from Margaret. I placed it on the coffee table between us. "Open it," I said. Mark hesitated, then flipped it open. Tara leaned in, her smile cracking. Page after page, every transaction listed with dates, merchants, amounts, and corresponding evidence. A charge from an Italian hotel, time-stamped the same day she had posted a selfie with a "Wish you were here" caption. There was even a printed comment under one of her vacation photos. Someone had asked, "Who paid for this?" And Tara had replied, "Shh, don't ask questions when the universe delivers." Mark looked up. His face was pale. "You printed all this?" "No, Mark. I documented it." He swallowed hard. "Is this for a lawsuit?" "Not yet. But I've filed everything. With the bank, with my lawyer, with a consumer fraud unit. And if you ever use my name, card, address, or presence for your gain again, it will be." Silence. Then Tara leaned forward, hands clasped like a child caught stealing cookies. "Judith, we were going to surprise you. Maybe bring you somewhere special next time. I swear, it was never meant to be like this." I looked her dead in the eye. "You didn't forget me. You excluded me. But not my wallet." She blinked. "And you didn't just forget to say thank you," I continued. "You left me behind with full intention. You made me feel disposable. But you packed my card." Mark finally broke. "I'm sorry," he said, barely audible. I nodded. "I believe you're sorry, but not because you hurt me. You're sorry because you got caught. And now there are consequences." Tara's voice wavered. "We can fix this. I'll delete the accounts. We'll move out if you want. Just, let's talk. No, I said. You'll move out because you've lost the right to stay. She started to protest, but I held up one hand. This house was my husband's, mine. It was open to you because I believed we were a family, but you don't get to call it a family when the only time you remember I exist is when your gas tank is low or your trip to Milan needs a boost. They were both silent now. Even the walls seemed to still. Mark looked at me one last time. Mum, please. I stood slowly. You had every chance to speak to me with truth. Instead, you let me disappear while you smiled for selfies. He looked down. I walked to the front door and opened it wide. You should go now. They left without another word. The silence that followed was the loudest peace I'd felt in years. 3 days passed. No knocks, no texts. No voicemail from Mark. No dramatic apology from Tara. Just silence, the kind that used to feel empty. Now it felt clean. I spent that Saturday tending to the garden Daniel had built by hand. I cut back the roses, cleared weeds near the old stone path, and planted new lavender. The sun warmed my shoulders. The soil smelled honest. After I finished, I came inside, made tea, and sat with my laptop. The homepage still showed airline ads for Paris and Florence. I stared at them, not with anger, with curiosity. I clicked. Just to look, I told myself. I browsed solo travel guides for older women, read reviews on walking tours through the French countryside, glanced at a group trip with optional museum add-ons in Rome. The price wasn't small, but for the first time in a long time, I wasn't asking if I deserved something. I was asking when I wanted to leave. Later that afternoon, I called the moving company. Not for myself, for them. Mark and Tara still had their belongings in the back unit. The agreement, now formal and signed, gave them 30 days to vacate, but I didn't trust them to be prompt. The moving company scheduled a pickup window for the following week. I boxed up what remained of their things. The house felt larger after each removal, lighter. I found one of Tara's old candles in the cabinet. Paris morning. I threw it out. Alma came over that evening, bringing iced tea and store-bought cookies. I heard, she said as she set down the tray. My niece saw them leaving your driveway like they'd just been kicked out of heaven. I smiled. Maybe they were. Alma patted my knee. I always said you were a saint, but even saints have boundaries. In the days that followed, I filled the empty rooms with new purpose. The back unit, once theirs, became my art studio. I hadn't painted in 20 years, but I started again. Soft florals, wide brush strokes, warm colours. I hung the first one over the mantel, a quiet field of wildflowers beneath a Tuscan sky. I booked an appointment at the hair salon. Nothing drastic, just a trim, a new soft colour, and a blowout. The stylist said, "You look 10 years younger." I told her, "I feel 20 years lighter." One morning, I got a text from Tara. "We're out. Hope you're proud. You got what you wanted. Enjoy your empty house." I didn't reply, because what she thought was empty, I saw as peaceful. What she meant as punishment, I took as permission. A week later, I returned to the airline site. I cleared my cookies. I started fresh. 1 adult, round trip, Paris. Departure in 30 days. Window seat, mid-morning flight. Fully refundable. Not that I planned on cancelling. I entered my payment info manually. Judith L. Winters. The card was in my name. The billing address was my home. The confirmation came instantly. As the screen flickered to the thank you page, I took a screenshot not for proof, but for memory. Something for me. Then I did something I hadn't done in a long time. I turned off my phone. I walked out to the garden. I sat in the chair Daniel built from old cedar, and I breathed. I didn't feel vindicated. I didn't feel victorious. I felt whole. Because when someone treats your love like a utility, the most radical thing you can do is stop giving them the outlet. They thought I was just the woman in the background, the forgotten one, the fragile one. But they forgot. I wasn't their foundation. I was the house. And this time, the doors were mine to close.